Alright guys, first step is to go ahead and get the console disassembled. We're going to start by using our game bit to remove the 4 screws in the corners of the system. Once we're on the inside, we'll use our Phillips drivers to go ahead and remove all the screws sitting in there. Something to note about this particular console is it's already been modded for an LED, so you know when it's getting power. So we're just going to have to go ahead and remove it. So anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and get all these screws zipped out. Well, now that the board's out, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of prep work on the board. Specifically, we're going to focus on the multi-out connector. As you can see, I'm adding just a little bit of flux to the pins that are sitting on the multi-out connector. And actually what I'm doing over here right now, let's zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. I'm actually just going to run the iron and just kind of reflow the solder here. The purpose and why I'm doing this is, well, first of all, sometimes the ground pins on these are connected together, so this will make them not be connected together, but also the reason why I'm doing this is because I want the solder to sit as low as possible. Having the solder sit as low as possible is really going to help when it comes time to fitment of the board and the RGB amp. So anyway, let's go ahead and get it done. Okay, once that's all been flowed, next is to clean all the flux off the board. To do this, I simply use 91% isopropyl alcohol. Any of this is going to get picked up, anywhere like a Walgreens or something like that. And then I use a toothbrush. I give it a, a really good scrub, and usually a little wipe down with either a microfiber cloth or something along those lines. I mean, you could really use anything to wipe it up afterwards, but the important part is to really get a good scrub with the brush and some isopropyl. Next, we're going to get out the flush cuts, and we're going to cut out the legs, these capacitors. For whatever reason, Nintendo, probably in an effort to save cost, left these extremely long on the board, so no one took the time to cut them. So we're going to go ahead and do that now and make those as flush as we can to the board. Okay, now that the board's all prepped, it's time to do a little bit of prep work on the RGB amp. You can clearly see this is the back of the RGB amp. It says isolate this side. So we're going to go ahead and isolate that. To do that, we're going to use a little bit of electrical tape. And yeah, we're just going to isolate it by adding it to the back of that so it doesn't end up shorting itself out on anything. It's kind of hard to see here in the video, but there are some small vias and traces that run on the back of the board, and we definitely don't want those to short on anything. Okay, time to get down to business. We've got the SNES Junior board prepped. We've got our RGB board prepped. So let's go ahead and get this thing ready. First thing to do is just kind of put it into place, make sure it's going to fit on there and over the multi-out pins the way it's supposed to. Next, you're going to see I'm going to apply a little bit of flux to the pins over here. If you're not using flux, you really should. It just makes your life like 10 times easier whenever you're soldering anything. Even if you're really good at soldering, it makes it extremely easy, and if you're not very good at soldering, you should definitely be using flux, because it just makes your life 10 times easier to work with. But nonetheless, this is pretty easy solder work. There's not much to do here. Just remember to use good technique here. You want to heat one end of the multi-out pin, the pad, and push the solder on the other end of the pad and the multi-out pin. That way you're making sure you're getting good contact when you're soldering, and you're getting a really good joint. You can always tell when you get a good joint because the solder will be really shiny. It's kind of hard to see here because of the flux being in the way, but you'll get a chance to see it here later once we clean the flux off again. All of the solder points that you're seeing me add in here are very shiny, which means that they are good, well wetted joints. So anyway, let's go ahead and finish up the rest of the solder work here. Okay, soldering's done. We used a little bit of flux, so time to clean that flux. Back to the toothbrush and the 91% ISO prop, and we're just going to go ahead and give this thing a really nice cleaning, scrub it down, and make sure that we get all the excess flux off the board. Something worth noting with flux too is I just go ahead and touch up this solder joint. You know, sometimes it can conduct, and when it does, it completely, you know, kind of ruins your project. So just make sure that you're taking the time to actually clean the flux. Not only does it look better, but it actually can make your, you know, make everything function a lot better as well. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and prep some wire here, so we can go ahead and connect this back up to the RGB amp. The way I do it's really simple. You can see I've kind of already stripped the tip of the wire off, and I've just, you know, kind of just dipped it or dunked it into the flux. And then what I do is I load up my iron with a whole bunch of solder, and then I just go ahead and touch the solder on the iron to the tip of the to the wire or the conductor that I'm using. And yeah, that goes ahead and does a fantastic job of you know, tinning the wire. So let's go ahead and get this bad boy installed now. Alright, I've dropped in a little picture here that's going to kind of show where we're soldering to get both red, green, blue, and C-sync. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now that we know where everything needs to go, it's time to go ahead and drop in the wire that we've gone ahead and done our prep on. Literally what I'm doing here is I'm actually inserting the wire or the conductor into the via. So I'm actually sticking it through the via, and then I'm going to go ahead and just tack it in. I say tack it in right now because this is not going to be our final joint. The purpose of this is basically just to hold it in place until we get everything sorted the way we want to, and then we can go ahead and do some, you know, final solder on it. So we've got our first two in, and yeah, let's go ahead and get the second two in and get those tacked in as well. Okay, now that everything's in there the way we want to, let's go ahead and finalize some of these joints. Basically, I'm just going to go kind of back over the joints that we had in there. Like I said, they were tacked in before, and we're just going to go ahead and actually solder them in now, and make sure that we've got a really nice bond here. So you know, these aren't going anywhere. No need for glue, no need for anything like that. That sloppiness. We are going to go ahead and just give this a nice, really solid solder joint. And these aren't going anywhere. Let's go. Alright, now that we're connected to the board and you know, soldered in really well to those vias, it's time to actually connect the other end to the actual RGB amp itself. This is pretty self-explanatory, and it's pretty easy to go ahead and get everything you know, soldered in the way you should over here. It probably would have helped if you used the included ribbon cable as opposed to my own wiring here, simply because it would all be in the correct order. Whereas now you can see I'm kind of having to manipulate the order of where things are going and whatnot. But I think if you use the included ribbon cable, this probably wouldn't be an issue. But anyway, it's not a big deal. We've got our leads incredibly short, which is nice. It looks professional. Looks really clean. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this all soldered in, and yeah, let's see how we work. Okay, now that that's all installed, we're going to go ahead and do some reassembly. As I said earlier in the video, this has an LED, so I'm going to have to solder this back in, but everything else should just be, zipping some screws in and whatnot, and we should be in good shape. So let's go ahead and get all this reassembled. Okay, now that the installation's done, it's time for the obligatory test. Yeah, just kick back and enjoy some of the gameplay here. I'm using a SCAR2 HDMI converter for this, and really appreciate everybody watching, and please comment, like, and subscribe. Thanks, and have a good one.